A man who stalked his victims up and down the East Coast, targeting them with disturbing precision over a single year, he brutally ended 6 lives, each killing marked by a violent personal signature. It was this chilling pattern that earned him the nickname, the I-95 Killer. But how does a person become capable of such horror? What turns a man into a predator who kills with his bare hands? And in the final moments of his life, what thoughts pass through his mind? Let's dive into the story of Gary Ray Bowles, his deadly crimes, the final hours before his execution, and the haunting legacy he left behind. From street kid to serial killer, Gary Ray Bowles was born in 1962 in the small town of Clifton Forge, Virginia. He never met his father, who died before he was born. His mother remarried not once but multiple times. One of her husbands turned out to be an alcoholic and violently abusive. Bowles grew up watching his mother get beaten, while he too suffered frequent beatings. At 13, he'd had enough. He ran away. Living on the streets, he hustled for food, money, and anything to survive. He slept under bridges, panhandled, and eventually in his teens he began prostituting himself to older men. It was survival, not preference, he claimed later. But somewhere in those early years, something inside him began to twist. He was arrested repeatedly in the 1980s for assault, theft, and drugs. Nothing that screamed serial killer yet, but it was coming. In 1991, something triggered a change. His girlfriend got pregnant. When she learned about his past and left him, Bowles reportedly snapped. That same year, he attacked a man in a violent fit of rage. A court handed down a sentence for assault, but it wasn't long before Bowles was free again and angrier than ever. The I-95 murder spree. In March of 1994, the killings began. His first known victim, John Hardy Roberts, was a 59-year-old man in Daytona Beach, Florida. Bowles strangled him with a towel, stole his credit card, and disappeared. Just like that, a pattern was born. Over the next 6 months, Bowles murdered 4 other men: 39-year-old David Jarman in Wheaton, Maryland, 72-year-old Milton Bradley in Savannah, Georgia, 47-year-old Alverson Carter Jr. in Atlanta, Georgia, and 37-year-old Albert Morris in Hilliard, Florida. His typical modus operandi was to prostitute himself to his victims before beating and strangling them and stealing their credit cards. While on the run, Bowles was put on the FBI's list of the country's 10 most wanted fugitives for his 4 known victims. On November 22, 1994, Bowles was arrested for the murder of Walter Jamel J. Hinton in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and confessed to all 6 murders. Each murder followed a chilling rhythm. Bowles would meet his victims, usually gay men, gain their trust, stay at their homes, and then kill them brutally: bludgeoning, strangulation, sometimes using household items such as rocks, bottles, and towels. He left fingerprints, used their bank cards at ATMs, and often stayed in the city after the murders. He wasn't trying to hide. He simply didn't care. He told police later he believed one of his victims gave him HIV and that every man after was revenge. But there was no HIV diagnosis, no medical proof, just rage. It was all targeted, calculated, and personal. The investigation and arrest. By the summer of 1994, law enforcement across several states had a problem. Someone was killing gay men along the East Coast. There were no ransom demands, no consistent weapon, no confessions, but there were clues. Fingerprints linked Bowles to multiple crime scenes. Witnesses described a soft-spoken, southern-accented drifter. Security cameras caught him using stolen ATM cards. Still, he managed to stay one step ahead. In November 1994, his luck ran out. Police caught up with him in Jacksonville, Florida, ironically reading a newspaper article about the very manhunt pursuing him. He didn't run, he didn't fight. Instead, he confessed. In chilling detail, Bowles admitted to 6 murders. He said he could have killed more. Some investigators believe the true count could be as high as 9 or 10, though only 6 were confirmed. The media dubbed him the I-95 Killer, a name that reflected both his targets and his movements. His arrest offered relief but no comfort. For the victims' families, the horror had just begun. The trial and the death row years. Gary Ray Bowles was charged in multiple states, including Georgia, Maryland, and Florida. But it was Florida that took the lead, choosing to prosecute him for the brutal murder of Walter Hinton, who was the final known victim in Bowles' terrifying spree. The evidence was overwhelming. A bloody crime scene, a stolen vehicle, and Bowles' own words. He didn't fight the charges. He barely flinched. In 1996, he was convicted of first-degree murder. And when it came time to argue for sentencing, prosecutors didn't have to work hard. Bowles didn't beg for his life. He didn't cry in court or claim innocence. At one point, he even said it out loud, "I deserve it."
Yes, Your Honor, I'm appearing just in return in case number 94.
You just want me to pick an arbitrary date.
The jury agreed. He was sentenced to death and transferred to Florida State Prison, a high-security facility that houses some of the state's most violent and infamous criminals. There, in a concrete cell just 6 feet by 9, Gary Ray Bowles began the slow countdown to his execution. He would spend 23 years on death row, mostly in solitary confinement. For more than 2 decades, the man once dubbed the I-95 killer lived in near total isolation. No physical contact, no roommates, just a steel bed, a toilet, and time. Prison guards described him as quiet, often cooperative, but always detached. He rarely caused trouble, but he never built connections either. He seemed to exist in a suspended state, present, but disconnected from reality. Bowles filed a few appeals, but they were mostly procedural technical challenges that rarely reached emotional depth. Unlike many death row inmates who cling to hope, Bowles never denied his guilt. The legal motions weren't about innocence, they were about the process. In the rare interviews he gave, Bowles' tone shifted like sand. Sometimes he showed flashes of regret, expressing sorrow for the lives he had taken, but at other times he appeared indifferent, almost robotic. The contradictions in his behavior left many wondering whether it was remorse or just fatigue. These mixed signals continued until his final days. To some, Bowles was a broken man, resigned to his fate. To others, he remained the same predator who had once claimed 6 lives without mercy. One thing was clear: he never fully explained why was he killed, and he never asked the world to forgive him. Final meal and last hours. August 22, 2019 was his final day. That morning, Bowles declined a visit from a spiritual advisor. He didn't speak to the press. He didn't write a final letter. What he did ask for was a simple last meal: 3 cheeseburgers, French fries, and bacon. No dessert, no drink. Just the kind of fast food you could get at any drive-thru. It was disturbingly casual. By 9 p.m., the prison staff began the formal preparations. The lethal injection drugs were readied. Witnesses, reporters, officials, and family members were escorted to the viewing room. Some of the victims' families chose not to attend. Others sat silently, waiting for closure that would never fully come. At 10:34 p.m., Gary Ray Bowles was escorted into the death chamber. When asked for final words, he paused, then said, "I'm sorry for the pain I caused." It was the first public sign of regret in decades. The drugs entered his bloodstream at 10:45 p.m. Within seconds, his body relaxed, his eyes closed. By 10:58 p.m., he was declared dead. Aftermath and legacy. Gary Ray Bowles' execution marked the end of one of the most infamous serial murder cases in Florida history, but the pain left behind still lingers. In Jacksonville, a small memorial was held for Walter Hinton. His sister told reporters, "We waited 25 years. It doesn't bring him back, but it brings peace." The LGBTQ+ community, many of whom felt targeted by Bowles' rage, spoke out too. Advocates pointed out that many of Bowles' victims were trusting, kind men who had opened their homes to someone they thought needed help. Instead, they were killed for it. The case also sparked debates about hate crimes, mental illness, and how society treats homeless youth. Was Bowles born evil, or made that way by abuse, trauma, and years of neglect? In the end, it may not matter. What matters are the lives lost and their stories, not the killers. 6 were confirmed dead, 25 years on death row, and one final meal that ended it all. Gary Ray Bowles is gone, but the damage remains. What turns a man into a killer? Could anyone have stopped him? There may be no easy answers, only the echoes of lives lost and lessons we can't afford to ignore. This isn't just the end of a case. It's a reminder. Every killer leaves behind shattered lives. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this powerful, like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Thanks for watching.